Welcome, everyone, to Dr. Emmett Emery Sr. You Better Stand Your Watch podcast. Today I have a guest, bright young gentleman. His name is Deshon Charles. He's going to introduce himself to you. And today we're going to talk about respect and boundaries. Before we get going, Deshon, I'd like for you to introduce yourself to my audience.
Hello, my name is Deshon Charles. I'm a medical officer, registered nurse by profession, pushing 18 years. I worked in multiple facilities, and I've worked in the private and regular sector, including the corrections facilities, magnet institutions, home care, and I'm also in public health, certified.
You also part of what?
I am part of and proud of to be part of the best fraternity in the world, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, 10 Club. And I'm a prior Air Force veteran, hoorah.
All right.
And I also have two wonderful children, fraternal twins, my son Deshon II and Deandra, my daughter, and my woman of 20 years, 15 years as my wife. I'm a lovely Andrea. Love you.
Good. I'm glad you put all that in there, boy, because you've been calling me late on the night looking for a couch to sleep on.
Negative.
I kind of threw that curveball at you, too. Kind of threw you off. You're like, what is he talking about?
Yeah.
I got to let Bianca know that I got you. Bianca was my guest last week.
Oh, wow.
Last podcast, rather.
Trust me, I wasn't going to forget that one.
Today, we're going to talk about respect and boundaries, as I mentioned. And before we get started, I'd like to wish, look at me, tongue twister today. I'd like to wish my brother-in-law a happy birthday. Today is his birthday, and I wish him nothing but the best for his birthday. And each year we cherish our birthday. We have no other choice. We have a choice, but I prefer myself and others that they thank the Lord for the fact that he gave them that year and the years to come. So getting into respect. As respect for an individual, you look for people to respect not you, the person, but you, the individual. Whether it be respect for your accomplishments, whether it be respect for your position of authority, whether it be respect for your title. It's one individual that comes to mind, and I have the utmost respect for this individual I'm about to talk about, and he gets respect, but I don't think he gets enough respect. And watching him and the way he moves and the way he talks and then looking at the accomplishments that he has is like, that's one of them wow moments. I stepped back and said, wow. Nobody know I'm saying wow, they just see me standing there, look, little blank face, but I was saying, wow, this man was truly blessed by God. And the man I'm talking about is Leslie J. Miller Jr. We call him Les Miller. I'll tell you a little bit about Les. Les Miller has been giving back to his community, state, and country for more than 50 years. He is a Tampa native, born and raised in Hillsborough County, where he attended public high school. After graduation from high school, he stayed home and attended and graduated from the University of Southern Florida. Les Miller served his country honorably in the United States Air Force during the Vietnam War. Les Miller is the first person in the state of Florida's history to serve as a Democratic leader in both the Florida House of Representatives and the Florida Senate. He also served on the Tampa City Council and as Hillsborough County Commissioner. 19, Les Miller was listed as number 9 on the list of Tampa Bay's most powerful politicians. I don't know who's doing the voting 19, but if I'm doing the voting 2025, Les Miller's number 1. Powerful man. When he speaks with authority. You have to meet this man. First of all, you need to do your research, do your history. Google him. Research him. I'm not just saying this about this man. Research him. He has a park named after him. And most importantly, he is a proud member of the Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, Tampa alumni chapter. Powerful man. There's always going to be someone in your life who you look upon and say, wow. Who have you look up on, Deshon? D. I'm calling him D. I'm not calling him Deshon. Deshon, it's so doggone long. Who you look up on and say, wow?
My uncle. He's done a lot. I mean, he came from the islands and got his degree in engineering.
Which island?
Haiti. So yes, Haitian. I like Haiti's in the house.
Okay, whatever you just said. Okay, cool.
Yeah, he's a great father, a great professional, always there. So I really look up to him.
Good. Workplace respect. In a workplace context, respect typically refers to valuing the qualities, skills, and positive attributions of coworkers and employees, treating them with professionalism and consideration. However, creating a shared understanding of what it means to be respectful to others in the workplace, especially from bosses to employees and employees to employees, remains a challenge. That is despite an increasing number of companies embracing the concept workplace respect. And a lot of the companies, it's just me talking. I don't know how D feel about this. A lot of the companies is adapting this workplace respect. It's supposed to start from the top down. And you see the top people who's not respecting you. Walk right past you, don't say good morning, or look at you from a distance and never say anything. Then you approach them and they walk away. It starts from the top. Workplace boundaries. Workplace boundaries build trust, improve reliance, resilience, and well-being, and contribute to a higher performing environment. Test, respect, open communication, and boundary setting knowledge and skills are needed for successful workplace boundaries. There's a difference between respect and boundaries. I want you to respect me, but also watch my boundaries. So in the end, you're respecting my boundaries. A lot of people's boundaries are 10 foot. A lot of people's boundaries might be 20 feet. A lot of people's boundaries might be a little bit closer. All depends. And you have to be careful with boundaries on the different genders. So it's 3 different types of boundaries in the workplace. I'm going to elaborate on. I'm going to mention them, Deshon. I want to know your viewpoint. Physical boundaries, shaking someone's hand rather than hugging him or her.
My profession, you definitely have to be cautious when it comes to boundaries. But in general,
what's your profession?
Registered nurse. So when you're working with someone, it's a little bit different. But of course, initially you have to warm up to it. But when it comes to coworkers, you definitely have to get a feel for the culture before you even attempt to be closer than 3 feet, because that's the standard in the United States, where unless you go to like Korea somewhere, they're a little bit closer. So it also depends on who you're dealing with. Some hospitals, the staff are from multiple countries and different places, so you have to adapt to that. But of course, you have to go by the regulations.
So isn't it tough adjusting your boundary as a nurse? Because if you work in an emergency, you got to be closer than if you're just doing regular patient care. And then if you're taking blood pressure readings or vital signs, it's a certain distance. How do you know how to judge your distance with a patient?
It's more experience. Once you have some experience under your belt, you can kind of feel the situation. You know how they say read the room?
Yes.
So you go in there, you look at the family, if they're in there or not, you have a nice conversation, you find out exactly, where they come from and how they feel about where they are in the moment, and you approach it that way. But of course, you always have to explain what you're going to do prior, and then they'll acknowledge whether they're comfortable or not.
But you don't have that luxury in the emergency room.
In emergency, they're not able to, say something to you, especially if you're doing like AED, CPR, something of that nature. But of course, you have to respect their family members. Yes, when you're putting the shocks.
Okay. All right. I think about one of the centuries. BC, AD. Emotional boundaries, delegating work to others appropriately.
Yes. Now, I've been in middle management in the military, and I've also been a charge nurse. You have to know your staff. You have to know your people. So depending on who you're dealing with, you're going to have to change your approach.
Mental boundaries, not gossiping with colleagues at work.
I am fully against that, because that will catch up to you. You need to be someone where if you're going to say it behind their back, you need to say it in their face, because if not, it's going to come around, and then you're going to have a workplace imbalance, and before you know it, it's going to escalate into something worse.
But that's a difficult mental boundaries are very difficult to identify because you hear the rumors, but you really won't know where it starts.
I mean, that is true, but that's why you have to be very observant. Being military, former military yourself, you understand, as say, situational awareness. So when you come into the room or you come into a work environment, know your staff, and then be observant. The best managers know what's going on with their staff. They can just tell from their body language.
Well, it also, in the military, I had two folds. You adapt to the environment that you're in, like you just said. That's why you know your environment, because you're in different duty stations. So if I'm stationed on a shore base, I'm going to be different than when I'm serving out at sea. Or I was different, my communication, when I was a drill sergeant. So it varies. That's why I ask you those questions about the nurse, because it's like you change his hats in situations.
There's many hats, and unfortunately, they maximize on the staff sometimes. So you find yourself, being the social worker, the counselor, the actual the nurse yourself, the nurse aide, chaplain. It just depends on the situation.
Wow. So if you're playing chaplain, how do you train yourself for recovery?
That is one thing about nursing that's hard to do, is leave it at work.
What do you mean?
Because when you leave the job, you're supposed to be able to decompress. But depending on your situation, especially if it's something emergent, if you've seen like a child pass away or you see the parents, that's something that you just can't drop. You have to work through it.
Why?
Because you usually have an emotional reaction to it. You see children and you see innocence, and you see someone who had a full life ahead of them. Whereas it's kind of easier to accept when you see someone that's older. No disrespect to the elderly, but you understand they've lived their lives. So when you see something happen to a child, it hits you, even if you don't have children.
That's why I asked that question. I'm leading into something that you cannot leave sometime at work.
Yes.
So I want the American people and my viewers, subscribers and followers abroad to listen to what I'm about to say, because my condition is everywhere. PTSD. If it's a military veteran in your country, in this country, and if you've been to war, you have seen things. You have seen death. You have seen birth. What I mean by birth means someone found God. We ever had a situation one time, we was in an area which I'm not going to name, and this individual walked down to the water, and we had a pastor on board. It wasn't a chaplain, it was a pastor on board, and he baptized him in the waters over there. If you'd have let that sucker go, you wouldn't have found him in the water. So dirty at the time, boy, but he went down and came back up. Now we're finna switch gears to kids. Respect and boundaries for kids. Okay, start early, encouraging young children to talk about their feelings and consider what others might be feeling.
Absolutely. You establish it early so that hopefully over time it would stay with them. Explain the situation, because I grew up at a time where kids are seen and not heard. But of course, over the years and hearing about and learning about behavioral health and child development, you realize that that doesn't work with everybody.
You grew up in a location like I did, inner city, big city, because you grew up in New York.
Yeah.
And I grew up in Chicago. It wasn't that the kids was not seen. It's so many doggone kids. Boy, and your parents worked all the time. So the kids out there playing with each other, and nobody paying attention to them.
Yeah, you kind of raise yourself.
You raise yourself sometimes. Or you're getting raised with a little kid next to you, if you're not dropping them. Set clear rules. Establish fair rules and consistent consequences.
I am totally in agreement. My wife said it's the military side of me, but I said if I had children, regardless of sex, it'd be across the board. But then I had a conversation with her. She's like, okay, be a little more light on your daughter. But I honestly think that when you're fair and across the board, it's just like with adults. You're going to receive that same respect because you understand that your word is your bond. You mean what you say.
Exactly.
Because if you don't, then you're out the window. The respect is gone. They don't expect you to follow through what you say, and that becomes a problem.
Because they're always watching you.
Yes.
As soon as they make a mistake, well, you did, or you said.
You know it.
Propose alternatives. Teach problem-solving skills.
Absolutely. You need critical thinkers. Especially this day and age, you need to be able to think outside the box. You need to be able to sit down and assess the situation. And a lot of children don't receive that type of discipline or parenting. It's not really taught. But that's something that should definitely be passed along.
Isn't the kids of today more susceptible to critical thinking than you and I was when we was younger? Because they have the video games, the AI, the technology, when we didn't have all that. So a lot of the things we did was more on visual and manual, where they're into electronics and things of that nature. I mean, my grandson and granddaughter can go into a phone, do things in a phone. I still can't figure out what they did.
But the thing about that, it doesn't necessarily support critical thinking. It's that quick rush. They're unable to focus on one thing for an extended period of time. They need constant stimulation. And without that, sometimes they can get lost. Whereas us, we'll focus on something. Now, granted, if there's other things around, it could distract us. But at the same time, we'll take the time to look into it. Like say, okay, well, if this happens, then this may cause a reaction.
Well, I tried to play Death Auto video game, and that required a lot of critical thinking. So I've seen my grandson play that video game. I understand what you're saying.
That's reaction time. That's what that is.
But with me, that was critical thinking. Any type of thinking. I couldn't get it. I said, just put it down. He just laughed at me. Have developmentally appropriate expectations. Adjust boundaries based on age and maturity.
It's funny you mention that because I don't know. Recently, last couple of weeks, I came across this, I forget her name, but it's Save the Children. And it was about approaching children at their age. Whereas,
really?
Yes, because I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, regardless of the age, that, tap you if you did something.
Yeah. It wasn't a tap, but yeah.
Yeah. So she started mentioning something concerning genetics and how that passes on with trauma, and how if someone that you trust that's supposed to be there for you and care for you is hitting you, how do you approach that as a child? Because you haven't had that life experience to understand why they did it. So you need to approach them. Let's say they're 5 years old and they touch something hot. I don't do that, so on and so forth. But you really don't realize what type of reaction you're going to get from that child, because now they're looking at you like, what did I do? Comprehend that they did something wrong. So now it's more of a conditional thing, like operant conditioning. But you need to deal with that at an age-appropriate time, because you could be setting yourself up for emotional issues down the line.
See, but yes and no. Because back in the day,
it worked.
My brother was, I'm not going to say which one. It was a train track that come in the back of the projects. And for some strange reason, he used to stop and rest for like 2 hours and had a lot of furniture and stuff on it. So he went on that one time, little neighborhood kids, and they stole some of the furniture and stuff off the train. And you steal them, but don't know what to do with it. You can't bring it home. Parents know it's stolen. So they going door to door trying to sell that crap. You didn't think mom gonna find out? So what mom say? She made sure he knew why she was whooping him. You went on the train tracks and took furniture. Wow. I'll make sure you don't do that again. Wow. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Wow. He didn't get a chance to say anything, but she explained herself.
True. What was the age? I guess that's the question.
15.
Yeah, that's old enough to comprehend.
Yeah. You can comprehend now at age 9. I mean, and I always slow down, and it touches me when I talk about it, because I was born and raised in the city of Chicago. But you got babies killing babies. What I mean by babies? You got 8 and 9-year-olds in youth detention for shooting another 8 and 9, 7-year-old in a school or in a park. Well, Chicago, there's no shooting in the schools, and they don't have metal detectors either, and that's kind of strange. I don't know about other big cities, but I never heard about a shooting in the city of Chicago inside the school. I heard about the shooting on schools' grounds. Mm-hmm. So never inside the classroom. People, when they start shooting, they run inside the building. No one comes in to do the shooting. They wait till you're outside. So I guess that's respect. I don't know. You're still shooting, killing folks, but I guess respect for killing. I don't know. But in some inner cities, you don't hear about that.
In Brooklyn, the high schools have metal detectors.
They have metal detectors?
Yeah, the elementary schools don't necessarily have. They do have a safety officer.
Well, they need all that in these rural areas. They need metal detectors in the middle schools and the high schools. because of these deaths is happening in the rural areas.
Well, they're raised around guns more than the metro.
I had a gun at 8, 9.
Well, you know, hunting and, you know, rifles.
I was hunting too. I was hunting for buyers for that cane. No, it's not true. It's not true. If it was, no, it's not true. Now we're going to talk about respect and boundaries from a parent to a child. Having unexpected and frequent visit to that child's house when they're adult. That's that parent not respecting that child.
Yeah, that's a problem. Fortunately for me, I've never had that issue. And I don't plan on doing that to my children because at a certain point, you have to respect their adults.
Unsolicited input about your partner.
That's a fine line to tread right there.
So you actually, it's a lot of kids going through that. And it's a lot of both male and female. And majority of the ones, from when I should have wrote down the numbers and where I found this information from. What I researched, the majority of the kids that parents are doing that to them is the ones that are attached to their parents. And you usually hear me talk about the daddy's girl and the mama's boy, because they so attached, that parent have attached themselves so much to that child, and they constantly have to caress and touch and hold that child and have that child close, and they're always worried about that child. You can worry about your child without intervene on the boundaries of a young adult. As a young boy, a young girl, and a teenager, you start cutting off at teenage years. And you know it's an issue with that child when that child is a young adult and they still want that same comforting. They still want that same closeness. They still want to be next to that parent. They still want that parent to hold them, caress them, and rub them and things of that nature. So that's the problem with that child.
Yeah.
And that parent is going to be a parent, but sometimes some parents go a little bit overboard with their attachment for various reasons. No one knows but that parent. And they sometimes infringe on that individual household.
They set it up for failure.
Set them up for failure. Him and her for failure. And sometimes that child invites them into it.
And I hope the spouse is paying attention.
I remember when I was pastor in Chicago and I had a counsel, an individual, a family, they had a family issue, whereas the girl was a daddy's girl, and it was 3 daughters, and she was the middle child, because the middle child used to get left out, but I guess the father took it on himself to make sure the middle child was not left out. Well, the 2 end childs, the younger and the older, resented the middle child, so there wasn't a love connection that it should have been. It's a sisterly connection, but it wasn't that tight love connection. The 2 on the ends did more with each other than they did with the one in the middle. So for that reason, the middle child never let go the closeness from dad, and dad never let it go. I mean, to the point where she would call dad if a spouse said, we got to save our money for the bills and we can't buy this or buy that. You can't go shopping for this. She called dad. Dad give her the credit card. So she's not learning control and discipline in that household that they're in because she got an outlet. And dad was warned by mom to stop doing that. But dad wouldn't listen.
But God forbid something happens to dad. Now what's the situation?
So she going to be mentally and probably emotionally disturbed if something happened to dad because of attachment. It should be a way that parent understand without getting angry or attacking the individual that communicate with them about backing off a little when they get it. And not take it personal and say, you don't understand why I do that. No, you're not going to understand outside looking in why that person does that. But to take a look at it, take a step back and see how that child is responding. If that child is responding in the way the person in therapy is saying that child is responding, then you know something is wrong. And so you back off and find another method of comfort.
Yeah, compensating. And it's not always something positive.
For some who's very emotionally disturbed, they feel rejected, and sometimes they feel directed, and they're not. And usually those are ones that are not really in tune with other people, other peers in society, because they like to stand alone, or they got picked on as little because they stand alone. Functioning good and they're a little bit off balance. And if you're not careful, those are the ones that drift over into the suicidals and suicide. And it's real evident with military, especially the one with PTSD. And the ones with PTSD that was close, the female and the male that were close to the parents in that attachment. And now you're talking about going off and being independent in the military. And then you go away, and then you lose that, and you find yourself. But then when you get back to that parent, you regress back to those modes, to the methods, to that sort of
those dynamics.
Yeah. So, but the parent not going to see it, because the parent going to say, "That's my child."
Like they say, be 80 years old, that's still my child.
Yeah, it's not going to change. The fact that it's your child, but I don't know.
It's a delicate situation.
It's a delicate situation. Interfere in your personal life.
That is a no-no. That's why they call it personal. Parents need to, if they're interrupting in your personal life, you definitely need to have a sit down.
Now, before we get into respect and boundaries to your spouse in your marriage, let's talk about respect and what it means to you. What respect means to me, for example. If I introduce myself to you as Dr. Emmett Emery Sr., then that means I'm introducing myself as Dr. Emmett Emery Sr., not as Emmett Emery. So if you don't introduce me to others or address me as Dr. Emmett Emery Sr., then that's disrespectful. Why is it disrespectful to me? Because not everyone has a doctorate degree. Not everyone is in financial debt for that doctorate degree. And not everyone has that passion from that doctorate degree. The individual who have that doctorate degree that feels that if you don't recognize the DR in front of their name, they feel disrespected. The ones that say, okay, you don't have to call me by doctor. Just call me by my name. You have some to say that. But those are the ones that have not struggled to get that doctorate degree. Those are the ones that probably was given money to get that doctorate degree, or was in a program to get that doctorate degree. They're not in financial debt, or had to go through struggles in the household, or had to do it online and it took them 3 or 4 years to do it. So the ones that did not really go through all that painful struggle, I'm just a normal person. You don't have to call me by doctor. But the ones that went through it, and the ones that have family members or friends who don't have it, and they feel that it's an accomplishment by them, and they know that's accomplished by them, and their friends and their family doesn't address them in that matter, when they come forth and say that, yeah, they feel disrespected. And they feel that their boundaries has been crossed. So I got family members that don't call me doctor. I got close friends that don't call me doctor. I got in-laws that don't call me doctor. And the strange thing about it is I don't expect my kids to call me doctor. But when they introduced me to their friends, they said, "This is my dad, Dr. Emmet."
They've seen it. They've seen
the
hard work that you did.
They've seen it, and they understand it. Yeah. And my daughter really gonna understand it now because she gets her doctorate in May.
That's all right.
And she gonna feel, she's not gonna bother in the beginning, but over a period of time, she's gonna sit down and think about the accomplishments we had and the hard work that she's doing from the degree that she have. And then she's gonna look at the people around her and say, wait a minute. That's Mr., that's pastor, that's chairman, that's president, that's deacon. Well, I'm a doctor. So you respect the titles of those individuals, which is given to them, but you don't respect the title of something that was earned. That's just me. I've talked to some other doctors about that too. They say, no, we can't change that. Well, you got 1.5 right now, 1.5 to 2% of America have doctor's degrees.
That's the select few.
So if everyone had them, it'd be different. So if that few has them, that means they earn them. That means it's hard to get. They're not being given out. So when I addressed the individual and said, I'm Dr. Emmet. Oh, why you need somebody to call you doctor? What? Because I'm a doctor.
But that reaction sounds personal.
It's personal.
Yeah.
I'm like, is it something against me? Or is it animosity? Or is it jealousy?
You could be carrying baggage you don't know about.
But don't bring it to me.
I know, right?
It's a lot of time I just didn't say anything. Even having conversations, you're having conversations with individuals, they're talking about a topic. I got a DBA. That's a doctor in business administration. I can tell you anything from the marketing to economics, to Wall Street, to administration, to business, distribution, warehouse, anything pertaining to business and administration. I have that knowledge and concept. And what gets me when I'm sitting back and I'm talking to someone talking about shipping with transportation coming from overseas, and I'm talking about import-export tax. I'm trying to explain it to, oh, you don't know what you're talking about.
That's a big assumption.
I don't say anything. I'm thinking, if he recognized me or she recognized me as Dr. Emmet, then they'll see what I'm talking about. Because they haven't recognized me as Dr. Emmet, they recognize me as Emmet. So by recognizing me as Emmet, you put me as your equal. And when you put me as your equal, you feel you know just as much as I do. And if you did recognize me as Dr. Emmet, it brings above, and then you think I'm arrogant. So individual with a doctorate degree, even though they earn it, depending on the status of the degree, if it's MD or nursing or things of that nature, they give the respect. Even the lawyers get respect with the Esquire.
Yes.
But individuals in psychology and psychology, well, I said it 3 times, didn't I? A business, MD, those other degrees, they don't get the respect.
Dentists don't either.
Dentists don't either. So what do respect and boundary mean to you?
Respect for me, in general, it's a problem when people aren't considerate. When you come into a situation and you do what you want to do, how you want to do it, as if there's no one else around. You come into my home or you come into my circle and you just say, hey, this is how it's going to be.
Blatant disrespect.
Yeah, that's a problem. Because I consider myself a very considerate person. So I'll look at everyone's needs and then work it out. But there are a lot of people you come across, they could care less.
And what happens if you don't say anything?
They'll continue to do it until you stop them. But then when you do react, that's why you can't be passive aggressive, because then it's going to be a problem. Mm-hmm. So you need to just knock it out from the start.
So what happens when you do say something?
Well, myself, I'm kind of relaxed for the most part. But when I do say something, people are like, okay, it must be a problem. So my approach is very therapeutic. Sit down, say, hey, this is the situation, so on and so forth. And I react off how you react. If you give me some energy that's a little elevated, I'm going to give it back in return until I feel it's useless. Because you know what they say. So when you argue with a fool,
like two fools talk.
Exactly.
So if it's a man, there's not going to be any calmness. It's going to be aggression.
Yeah, and it's not going to last long.
If it's a female, it'll probably be calm.
Definitely.
To a male. But for female to female, it could be aggressive.
Absolutely.
And it's and then again, like you said, it depends on that individual. Is it personal? Why is it you feel that you can go into someone else's domain and be comfortable?
A lot of times, when I watch someone and their behavior, I might give them, and this is the nursing side of me. Outside of nursing, I wouldn't be like this. But this is the nurse side of me. I say to myself, maybe today was a difficult day. Maybe something traumatic happened. Maybe something with their family, their spouse. But I'll continue to watch them. And then if their behavior does not support my hypothesis, then I'm going to approach them differently.
You have siblings?
Actually, I do, but he didn't grow up with me. I have one brother. So
you got family in New York?
Yes.
I hope y'all listen to this, because I'm from Chicago. It ain't going to be no I'm passive aggressive or talking real calm. I'm going to ask, what the hell are you doing in my house? How you going to disrespect my house? What's up? If you don't give me respect in my house, you can get the hell out of my house. That's a city talk.
That's straight up disrespect. Straight up disrespect, you got to deal with it at the door. Absolutely. You're correct about that, because you sure not come in my house with that. But.
Okay, respect and boundaries to your spouse in your marriage. Respect and individuality. This allows both individuals to maintain their own identities within the marriage.
Absolutely. I'm one of those people who also believe prior to getting married that everybody should have their own bank account and a joint account, because you need to be an individual as well. Because if you're not an individual and you two mesh as if you're one, eventually it's going to become a problem because you don't have your own identity. So
money is always the easy one. It's the one I struggle with as far as the individuality, respect individuality, is that individual actually being independent. And my wife has considerably helped me with that because her job requires her to be independent. So with her job, she travels a lot and she does a lot of open work daily because she's a national sales director for Mary Kay. So, and with her, it's a little bit different because the people that work for her is not hired through them. They pay through commission. So it's a different. That means they can leave any time. So she got to put more work into it. She got to put more effort into it. She got to be more creative with it. And I got to understand with that, it's going to cause her to be away a little bit longer at times. So she might be out of town traveling on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Well, I might not see her until a weekend. Or she might be flying 2 weeks in a row. I might not see her for 2 weeks. Now, in some marriages, if you don't see that spouse for a day, something is wrong, and there's a lot of arguing, like a bickering, and you need to find another job. So that part there, I struggle with that, and now she have helped me with that. So, and it had nothing to do with the financial part. It had to be the independent part.
Yeah. I'm one of those husbands that supports your wife having friends and having friend time, or just going somewhere by yourself to the beach, just so you have that time to yourself. Because you need to be an individual. Without it, you'll lose yourself.
Well, I've learned over the years that it ain't gonna matter if you support it or not. If she feel like she wants to go to the beach to get away, well, she's gonna go. Either you're gonna be mad, you're gonna be upset. If you feel like you want to go to the beach to get away, you don't end up going. She's gonna be mad and upset. Individual part would be forgiven. It's if she go hang out with her girls. It's if he go hang out with his guys. Now that's disrespectful on each side. You couldn't spend the time with me, but you spend the time with someone else. So now it becomes disrespectful in that perspective. That's the way I look at it through my lens. So you're right. Give them the space. They got to have that me time. It's like we need that me time.
Yeah.
And like I said, I struggle with that, and my wife has helped me out with that. Now,
sometimes it's just a matter of time.
The separation has helped that. Because in the beginning, then over a period of time, because it's been a couple of years. That first year was a struggle, and it's been a couple of years. So now I'm.
And you notice when you're apart, you appreciate each other even more too.
Yeah, when you see each other.
Yeah.
Yes. If the communication is there while you separated.
Oh, yeah. That's
If the communication not there when you separate and you finally come together, it's anger.
Absolutely.
So, we always talk about that. Communication, conflict resolution, maintaining intimacy, setting boundaries around privacy and personal time can enhance the quality of intimate moments, ensuring that they are cherished and met, rush or disrupt.
Stick to the script, because when you're with someone, even after you have kids, you remember those kids grow up and they move out, and it's going to be right back to you too.
Exactly.
You have to prioritize your relationship.
The individuals that marry for 25, 30, 35, 40 years, and then all of a sudden they say they lost love for each other romantically. Male or female say, oh, I'm in love. I'm not in love with that person, but I love that person. Does that even make any sense?
No. Sounds like they gave up, to be honest with you.
Because you're talking about a century, 25, 30, 35 years together. You can't say you're there for the kids because the kids is gone for a while. Yeah. So you're there for each other. It's because you got too comfortable with each other and you didn't see the other person grow. The other person grew, but then just stayed there, waited on you to grow, and then you didn't grow, so that person just got bored and just left.
And that's where communication comes in.
And then you always have the outside source that come in.
If it's a licensed therapist, yes.
I'm not talking about the therapist. That person think they're doing therapy.
That one.
Yeah, that one that creeps in. And the sad part is some of them, they know that person is married.
Yeah.
whether it be female or male, they know that person is married. And so that's a disrespect right there.
That's a predator.
You
To be honest with you. Because they're assessing the situation, they're saying they see a weakness and they're taking full advantage of it.
I never looked at it like that. That's correct. That is a predator. So how do you treat those predators when you catch them?
On video, so we deal with them as needed.
As needed, huh? Thank you for tuning in to this week's podcast. As we go off, D, would you just tell my audience going out?
Appreciate life. I know it's a cliche. People say life is short, but it honestly can. A lot of things can change in the blink of an eye. So take it day by day. Stay close to the ones you love, and be the best you can be.
Remember, first of all, research Les Miller. I'm telling you, you'd be surprised on the accomplishment of that this man have had. Research him. Also, remember to respect not only the individual, but their boundaries. And if you respect an individual and their boundaries, they will do it to you in return. Again, thank you. God bless you. And subscribe to me. Gotcha. And tune me again. God bless and goodbye.